Hello, my bookish friends. I'm back. Here I am. Happy New Year to all of you. Did you get any books for Christmas? If you did and you're excited, let me know. I'd love to know what titles you're interested in reading in this year, and or if you bought any in the Boxing Day sale or anything like that. Okay, my cat has just joined us. Did you get any books for Christmas, Grimmy? So Grimmy got a little window hammock thingy so that he can sit in here with us when I'm recording. And yeah, so far he likes it. I think he's a little bit unsure. But if I find him doing something cute in there, I will take a picture and share with you guys. But anyway, to move on to my first review of the year, this is The Swarm by Andy Marino, and this one is a horror book. So the main character in this one, or one of the main characters in this one, is Detective Vicky Patterson. If you can, if you can hear that sound in the background, that's Grimmy's little kitty hammock making. It sounds like I'm on a pirate ship. I think. I don't know if the microphone will pick it up, but he looks pretty happy. So Detective Vicky Patterson is investigating a bizarre murder in her small town and barely notices the massive number of cicadas until they've reached plague proportions and attack her child, Sadie. Meanwhile, Will and Alicia are private investigators looking for a wealthy heiress who has joined a cult, and their investigation shows a link between the dangerous swarm and the cult itself. As the deaths pile up, various plot threads come together, and the mystery of who or what is behind the swarm becomes chillingly clear. This book is quite chunky, about 500 pages, and while it's mostly the story of Vicky and her daughter and then Alicia and Will, like sort of loosely two plot threads there, when we're about a third of the way in, two other characters' threads are added, giving us a tech baron and his new invention, and Rebecca, who works at the body farm. If you guys know what the body farm is, don't Google it if you don't know what it is. It might not be something you are ready to see. This book has been likened to The Birds meets Alien, which I can kind of see as it applies to the cicadas themselves, but not really so much the plotting or the writing style as a whole. Andy Marino also wrote It Rides a Pale Horse and The Seven Visitations of Sydney Burgess. This story seems to be partly sort of inspired by or especially triggering to people who experienced the recent waves of cicadas that emerged in 2024. I'm thinking specifically in the US, but this also happened in other parts of the world as well. At that time, two waves of mature cicada generations or broods emerged at once, and the noise was apparently deafening, and some places were just blanketed with the little guys. So I can see how this would be overwhelming and like pretty frightening, I think, especially depending on how you feel about insects, or if you grew up with that kind of imagery of plagues of locusts and that kind of thing. Some of the headlines in the US were pretty melodramatic about the whole affair. I haven't met any of the North American or US species of cicadas. I'm pretty sure they call them cicadas there, in case you're wondering what I'm talking about. But I do have a soft spot for the little guys personally. Growing up, I remember really hot summer evenings, especially in like summer holidays, just sleeping with the windows open to catch any tiny breeze possible and falling asleep to the song of these insects. They're quite lovely, really. They've got their wings are kind of look like fairy wings. And where I grew up, they had pretty cute little faces. They've kind of got like these little eyes and a little nose shape. They're pretty adorable. Yeah, so they're very big, but they're very gentle. They don't bite or anything. And I have lovely memories of handling them as a small child and how loud they were up close if they started making this sort of noise that they make when they're on your hand. It's loud. They also had really beautiful colors, and the species where I'm from had really beautiful names like greengrocer, black prince. I actually think the black prince is probably extinct now because it was going extinct when I was a kid. So I should look that up. But that said, not all of them, not all the species are little cuties. Some of them have a bit of there's something about them that's a bit more I don't know, less friendly looking, a little bit more cockroach looking, shall we say. And yeah, some of them have more of an intimidating look. I definitely don't think I would enjoy or love being surrounded by a huge wave of them blanketing every surface. I think that's quite a lot of cicada, even for me. But either way, that's just my relationship with this particular insect. Um, and I just thought it may be a point of context as to sort of maybe where this book is coming from or what inspired it a little bit. But I am curious. I know you guys that watch are from really different parts of the world. And did this like bumper crop, shall we say, of cicadas, was this where you were? I saw some really interesting stories online about kind of just how intense it was. Um, and yeah, my parents didn't love cicadas like I did, I have to say. They used to hate how the noise kept them up at night. So I understand that my outlook is not everybody's outlook. I think growing up in Australia too, something that is benign, like a cicada, versus checking your boots every morning to make sure that there's not like a poisonous spider in them that's you're just going to die. It's just a different perspective. But anyway, let's move on. I definitely don't want to talk about spiders. So, to get back to the book, there are good points and bad points about this book that for me are about in equal measure. So, really, this is a book of fiction in the commercial sphere. By that, I mean it's not literary fiction, or to put it in the context of this book, it's not Rosemary's Baby. It's more like The Rats by James Herbert, if you know your horror books. There are some really great 70s and 80s paperback horror that are like this, with a wave of killer creatures. Um, Rats, there's one about crabs off the top of my head, and there's one about killer fog, these kind of like natural phenomena that just kind of overdo it, shall we say. And so this book is kind of in that sort of tradition. Because of that, the characters here are not like really fully developed, created with great depth. And I actually think that's fine for this genre or type of fiction. It's not meant to be character driven. I don't have a problem with that. Yeah, I mean, we've got Vicky. She's a single mom. She's a detective. We get the idea. We don't really need more than that because we have killer bugs and we have body horror to keep us entertained and interested. And so that plot should be moving forward at a nice pace for this kind of genre, this kind of audience. That should work. But because the book is very long, we do actually need them to have a little bit more depth than they have here. It's not a 300-page book. It's a sort of close to 500-page book. So we need a little bit more depth and realism for us to now invest in them for that many pages. We do need to care about them to some extent. And we also just have too many main characters. We've got Vicky, our detective, Alicia and Will, the private investigators. And then also partway in, we have Rebecca and also Anton. So he's the tech guy. He's created an invention, shall we say. So these last two are added too late in the narrative, and they end up just slowing the whole thing down. You're at a point where you're going, okay, things are happening, it's starting to kick off, and then it just shifts, and it just doesn't work. They really don't add much at all, and could have been left out entirely without us really missing anything. It makes this middle section of the book very kind of bloated, very slow. And then the ending ends up feeling rushed by comparison because we sort of got bogged down in this kind of slog of stuff that we needed to get through. One thing that vintage horror got really good at doing was just keeping this kind of thing very simple, usually just following one or two characters going on a journey. How are they going to survive this thing? Why is this thing happening? And just kind of keeping it at that and keeping things going at a good clip. And I think this book is just trying things, and it's just not quite coming together. So speaking of that journey, the character's journey, the book really works when it's being gruesome and horrible. There are some set pieces and scenes within the book that are truly just bloody, slimy, gross, just crunchy, chilling. The cicada attacks, the cult scenes, and the murder victims are all really well used to create something really icky and eerie. This is all really great horror stuff, just what you signed up for. I wanted to know more about the mystery aspect of why this was happening. That kept me invested, and just how our main characters were going to survive this. However, this is kind of competing with long scenes of just unnecessary stuff. A few lines about Anton and his thing that he created would have covered it. We get this long monologue about him and his wardrobe changes or something, having some business meeting that's just not relevant to the plot at all. We don't need scenes at the body farm at Rebecca's work. It has nothing to do with anything. Rebecca's interior life, she has this specific thing in her interior monologue that I don't want to spoil for you, but it feels like it's there for a reason, and they don't do anything with it. It adds nothing. It's just not relevant or used in any way. So that could have all just been cut and it would have been a better book. Even Vicky, Will, and Alicia could have been tightened up a lot. Into that, we also get a very indecisive through line. At the start, we're given something about a cult, but rather than lean into that and going with that and sort of investigating the cult, the author can't seem to decide which horror cliche to use, so he uses all of them, meaning that they're all a bit of a vague mess. Don't get me wrong, I like a horror cliche. I don't have a problem with those being used. It's just pick a lane and then dive into it for us, take us into that. The only thing that isn't used is climate change. Everything else you can imagine is just kind of rammed into the back end of this book. If you know any of the usual suspects behind any X-Files TV show conspiracy theory type episode, they are all here in this book, and they're all the big bad responsible for this situation. All of them. And not in a wild, over-the-top fun way, but in a confused, unsatisfying, throw everything in at the end kind of way. The last page has a twist in it, and it's not wild and clever. It's just the one crazy thing that hadn't already been used. It's just, there goes the kitchen sink. Throw that in there too. So for me, as I said before, I'm in two minds about this one. I think it's just too long and it slows down too much in the middle. So it's not a great book or even the level of quality and entertainment that it should have been or could have been with better editing. Horror is meant to be fun and page turning and obviously scary. I think they kind of got the scary and the goriness, but it's not supposed to be a slog to get through. But if you are a horror fan, specifically a horror fan, the visual and visceral imagery, the people kind of spouting these cult phrases, bugs kind of burrowing, hair, teeth, and nails, death and panic, all of that stuff is really good horror stuff. It's really good writing. So it's got its problems, but I can see why Andy Marino has loyal readers. There's some really good stuff in here, and there were times where I was kind of like, okay, I want to see where this is going. I kind of like Vicky. I kind of like, the Alicia and Will. I'm hoping they get through this and survive. And it just meanders, pretty much like this review has today. Anyway, so is this one for you? I would say if you're a horror fan, it's going to please some of you. I did kind of think maybe Craig DeLuey readers might kind of like this one. It's over long and it has sections of slow exposition and just needless scenes, needless characters, kind of introspective things that just add nothing. So, if you're kind of somebody that doesn't have the mindset or sometimes you just don't feel like reading a really long book, then maybe skip this one. But it does have this kind of chunky, slimy, six-legged, sickening, crunchy thing going on as well, which is actually really good. So I don't know, maybe that will just help you make up your own mind whether you're the kind of horror reader that this one is going to kind of speak to you. If you're not a horror reader, this one is definitely not for you. It'll be too slow and too gross. So that is The Swarm by Andy Marino. Have you read this? If you have, what did you think? And if you've read any of his other books, I'd be really interested to know what you think. If his other books were really long as well, or anything like that, please let me know. I always like to know your thoughts. Do cicadas, do they creep you out? Because they just don't bother me. So it'd be really interesting to see what you guys think. Yeah. And of course, thank you to HBG Canada, because they sent me the copy of this book to review and share with you guys. And I do really appreciate that. Yeah, thank you for watching. Come chat to me in the comments. I'm a little bit behind on replying to comments at the moment because I took a little break over Christmas, as you do. So I will be getting back to you guys soon, and hopefully hearing some of your thoughts and feelings and opinions down in that comment section. So thank you so much. And until next time.